Hey, great to be with you. My name is Lori Hoke. My daughter recently posed a question that really had me thinking. She said, now granted, you got to consider her age. She's 5 years old, a preschooler. She said, Mom, what does the future look like? I'm so glad you asked, sweetheart. Have you ever caught yourself asking, what does my future look like? What does the future look like? How can you tell where your life is going? How can you see what's down the road so that you can be prepared today for what's to come? What direction is your life really headed in? Have you ever pondered the future? Well, if you're like my daughter, join the club. What I told my daughter, I'll also share with you. This I've learned through my own experience of learning to navigate my course, but more importantly, chart my course. I had a journal maybe a year or two ago that I absolutely loved the quote on the cover. It said this: the best way to predict the future is to create it. Yes. My response to my daughter was that, well, sweetie, we create our future one day at a time. Every decision we make is determining what the future looks like for us. Wow. Now, that's not a pressure type of situation, but rather a possibility kind of invitation. Every future result is impacted based on what we're experiencing and deciding today. And they compound. They take what's happened over days and weeks and months at a time to unveil this stunning thing that we couldn't have predicted coming, but over the course of decisions and actions we took, compiled into this brand new thing. Let me give you an example of this. We recently moved to Bismarck, North Dakota. What I haven't shared until right now is how that journey transpired. Several years ago, probably about 3.5 years ago to be specific, my husband went to a conference in Colorado. We were living in Nebraska at the time. And he experienced a session at this event that rocked him to the core. Have you ever been in a room with a speaker or some sort of experience that just resonated with you? Their voice spoke to something deeper within you, causing something new to bubble up and begin to stir that you didn't even know was in there. That's how my husband felt. He came home from that event saying, whoa, talking about the speaker that he'd heard and describing to me what really connected with him in that man's message. So we considered what was stirring in him, and it very much resonated with me with the first time I had experienced John Maxwell and read my first John Maxwell book. It's like this really got me. So we talked about it, prayed about it, considered it, imagined what could be. It felt like an epic shift from what life was at the time with my husband's current job and our positioning in Nebraska. But in July of 2016, my husband and I decided, actually it was before July, because July was when the shift began. Earlier that spring, my husband said, I really want to go up and tour this man's ranch and see this regenerative, globally renowned property that he's created, an organization he's established up there in Bismarck, North Dakota. You see the connection here? So I said, let's go. Let's go experience it. Let's make it a quick little trip and go and see what we can learn, what we can experience, how can we grow. So we made plans, made arrangements to spend a one-day private tour with this man named Gabe at Brown's Ranch in Bismarck, North Dakota. We took that trip July 15th, 2016. So it's specifically significant now that it's been just over 2 years since that catalyst experience transpired. We enjoyed the drive up. It was just my husband and I. Wow, just adults. We could have adult conversation the whole 9 hours. Are you kidding me? That was like, that made the trip worthwhile no matter what we saw. So we joked on the way up that we were going to legendary North Dakota. That's their state's motto. Legendary. Now that seemed worthwhile, didn't it? And before any trip, I always pray and ask God to make this be a life-changing experience in some way. So this trip was no exception. We made the trip, we spent the day with Gabe, soaked in everything we could, asked questions, learned, felt inspired, and then we headed back home. We felt like there was something that shifted there, though we had no idea. Who could have predicted we would be living here 2 years later? So that trip was the next step after my husband had experienced the conference a year prior. And then we go there and things start stirring. Again, we couldn't quite see the whole picture or what was really happening, but we were present to the process. Friends, if I can tell you anything, one of the things that's required to be successful and to lead well, both yourself as well as others, is to be both present to the process, meaning you're not looking so far ahead, you're not looking for 10 years from now that you miss what's being revealed right now. Be present to what is happening and be patient to what's unfolding. Being both present to the process and patient to the process, patient with the process, because things are in motion. When we live it every day, it can oftentimes feel like it's not happening fast enough. Have you felt that? Been there, done that, where it seems like you should be further along by now? But it's because you're with it every day that it feels like things are happening so much slower than you'd want. If we stepped back for a moment and let a month or two go by, well, then you could step back into your life and reevaluate yourself. I bet you'd see how much is actually happening on a day-to-day basis. This happens all the time with my 3 small children. When we go and see friends or family that we haven't seen for a couple of months or possibly more, their first response is always, "Whoa, look how big the kids are. Oh my goodness." Even a man yesterday that we ran into that we hadn't seen for 3 or 4 months, that was the first comment he said was, "Whoa, your girls are huge. Their hair is so much longer. They're so much taller. What's happening?" You see, because he doesn't live with us, he can notice the growth that's happening that even I don't see as their mom being with them every single day. For you parents out there, I bet you can relate to this. We're so in it, in the details, in the routine, that we can't get that bird's eye perspective to have the overview of just how significant the changes are that are happening right before our eyes, literally. So back to the story, we come back home from that trip in July of 2016 from Bismarck and remained patient to the process. How many of you get impatient at times and wish you could just know what's going to happen next, right? But the joy is in watching it transpire. And I believe in the time that elapses between when things feel like they're starting to move, which in this case we had no idea uprooting our family was in store, but we grow into the person required to be able to hold that bigger vision. So in 2015, 2016, when my husband was just starting to experience this tug to a new way of being, a new way of working and living and leading, he wasn't yet ready to take hold of the greater thing here. It's who we become in the gap from here to there that is required for us to steward the next part well. So in April of 2017, again, my husband's feeling this longing. I'm supporting him in this, helping ask questions, but also knowing that time is necessary for clarity to come. We weren't sitting around waiting for something to happen. A lot of people get paralyzed doing that. But we were present to the process, knowing something is already happening. Do you hear me? Oh, how much more could you rest and relax and remain at peace if you trusted that something is in fact already happening? So at Easter weekend 2017, we were staying with my sister in Utah, and my husband said, you know what? If I could do anything, I would move to Bismarck, South Dakota, and have a season to learn and grow on Gabe's ranch, having him mentor me and be educated in this new way of doing agriculture that focuses primarily on soil health and wholesome foods. If you're watching this, I think you already kind of know what my response would be, right? I mean, we're friends here. So, what did I say? I said, let's go. Right? Didn't that seem like the natural, obvious answer? You have this deeper desire? I'm in, baby. Let's do it. He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, I can't do that. Are you serious? I can't do that. I said, why not? Then he goes on to his description that, oh, please, a man in his late 30s doesn't go do an internship to be mentored by someone when he has a family of 5 to feed and provide for, and yada, 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 yada. I said, why not? Serious as I could be. See, sometimes we see limitations far more easily than we see possibilities. So it felt like, to me, it was pretty clear, and that trip in 2016 was more legendary than we knew it. Oh, wow. Who could have imagined that we would put the things in motion throughout 2017, the planning, the strategizing, all the next steps, which there's more details I could share on that another time. It wasn't easy. It was a big challenge. It would have been easy to drop out and quit the race, but we had a vision and we knew what we wanted the future to look like. Back to my daughter Hannah's question. Hannah, sweetie, what does the future look like? The future looks like, in this case, what Daddy's vision has been for the last 3 years. It just took time for it to fully take root and sprout and become something that emerged above the surface and could begin to grow. We've been putting things in place even when we didn't realize we were, to set our future up for what we want it to be. So, let me ask you, are there things perhaps that you're building in your life right now that you don't even realize? If you think to my example of the trip in 2016 to tour Bismarck for the day at the ranch, I had no idea that would be my future home place just 2 short years later. My challenge to you this time is to look back over your life, even in recent days, weeks, months, maybe over the last year or two, and see what is happening. If I'm struggling to feel like I'm not moving quick enough, or I'm not as far as I wanted to be right now, put away that glass is half full perspective or half empty perspective. Folks, around here we operate that the glass is half full. So what has been building for you? What is in fact happening that maybe you don't even realize is a process unfolding in and around you right now? What patterns do you see? What bigger vision is becoming clear that your heart is drawn to right now as we speak? What things do you see happening in you that you won't even catch unless you're intentional with taking time to look back? This just happened to me this last month. At the end of July, I was reviewing what I'd experienced and learned for the month, which I do at the end of every month. And I recommend to anybody to do that. I have a specific process and template that I created for that myself. Email me if you're interested in receiving that. I'd be happy to share that with you. Lori@lorihoke.com. I had felt like, maybe I didn't get as far as I needed to in July. Maybe I didn't get as much done as I wanted to. But when I looked at my month, I saw epic shift that had happened in a few key areas that I hadn't even been aware of until I stopped to look. So look back over your steps and ask yourself, what does my future look like? What am I creating it to be? What am I building right now to make this next season legendary?